Welcome to ECTV Live. I'm Rusty Fender, and Happy New Year. Happy 2017. David DeCosmo is absent today. He's actually entering 2017 the way I wrap up several years in the past with a little under the weather. So we hope David has a quick and speedy recovery from his flu-like symptoms at home. We have Kathy Hardaway with us, recurring guest here. Kathy is from the Greater Scranton MLK Commission, and a lot of events for Martin Luther King Day, of course, this year. Good to see you, Kathy. Welcome back. Happy New Year.
Rusty. Same to you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. I start with a story this year. Barbara and I usually go to national parks every year. Been to about 140 in the last 20 years or so. And this year we went to Hot Springs National Park in Arkansas. And I always wanted to see me being a geological and a civil and an aerospace engineer, wanted to see all the hot springs, one of the largest formations. And we went to Central High School, of course, the home of the Little Rock, the busing issues and all that. Central High School is now a National Historic Landmark. And I figured we were only less than 2 hours away from Memphis. And other than getting some really good barbecue in Memphis, I always wanted to go to the Lorraine Motel.
Excellent. And
didn't know when I got there that the brand new National Civil Rights Museum was built adjacent to it. And it was like a step back in time. I showed you the photos before we went on the air. And room 306 on that incredible April 4th, 1968, James Earl Ray. And the place was mobbed. I've never seen such a setting at the Lorraine Motel, which is also a National Historic Site with the museum. You know, you look back and folks talk now about ISIS and terror attacks all over the world, but things were just as absolutely unpredictable and violent back then, albeit aimed more towards the political and civil rights movement and candidates like Malcolm X and Bobby Kennedy and John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King. Have you visited that area in Memphis?
I have. Actually, my husband's family, some of his family live in Memphis, so we've been there several times. And I agree. It's something that if you're in the area, you need to partake.
You bet. And whether you're a civil rights fanatic or a fan or, just enthralled with history like that, it is an incredible step back in time to 1968. Of course, I was only about, I was 11 years old at that time, but to see the place, it's amazing because it's a small motel, but it's nestled in between all of modern day Memphis. You would never think that this little tiny cul-de-sac in a back alleyway was where he stayed, and he was there that day for the Poor People's Convention. But he never made it, unfortunately, on that day.
And it's so important that we partake in those type of things because we forget our history. And I'm always so concerned working with youth that if they don't visit those type of sites and reflect, they forget. And as you said, unfortunately, we had unrest then, and I think our country is similar unrest, just in thoughts maybe, centered around a war, race, civil rights, things that were important back then are still important today.
Yeah, I think life is a pendulum. I think it swings back and forth, unfortunately. But I'm really glad to see them preserve things like this, because back in the 60s, the Pennsylvania station, the grand Pennsylvania train station in New York, torn down, its remnants buried in the New Jersey meadowlands, patterned after the baths of Corinth. And then they wanted to tear down Grand Central Station, an almost 200-year-old structure. It's nice to finally see that we have, the conservation and reclamation movements around to restore historic places like this. So it's really good to see. So we have come a long way in that aspect.
We have.
Now, how did you get involved with the commission here?
Well, I just believe I am a native Scrantonian, and as a result of that, I really believe that the people from this area continue to make a difference and need to be involved. And I volunteer on several organizations, and this is one that I went running to because I feel it's very important for the African American community in Scranton to have a presence. I think it's very important for us to continue to reflect on the principles of Martin Luther King. Though it may be only a weekend, we tried to have a fulfilling weekend that really reaches out to youth and to our adults. And also, Martin Luther King was a Baptist minister, so we end up our weekend with a church service. But very important to have a presence. And currently I'm the president of the Greater Scranton Martin Luther King Commission, and we're trying to kind of reinvent ourselves and have things to do throughout the entire year to have a presence and really be an agent of change in our community.
It was a great notch in history when Martin Luther King Day was finally made a national holiday.
Yes.
That was a huge, that wasn't a step, that was a leap for mankind.
It was.
And good to see it as well. What were some of the challenges that you had when you undertook, when you got into the organization here? You were from the founding steps of it, so what did you want to try and form in this commission?
Well, one of the things we wanted to make sure happened was that though it's a day, that there are the principles that need to impact us the entire year. And when we started out, we just kept saying, it's just not a day off. Let's do things. And one year we just had everyone volunteering throughout the community, which seemed somewhat effective for a while, and then we had to change what we do. We used to have a breakfast and invite ministers, and that changed. We always have had a Monday evening service, but here of late, we have a Sunday afternoon dinner where we try to bring in speakers, local speakers and speakers from out of town to really bring home the message of Martin Luther King.
You know, we talk about the Lorraine Motel and the way things have changed in the last almost 50 years. You know, now you have a dignitary like he that comes to town. You have bevies of Secret Service and his own protection and all that. Back then, a man like Martin Luther King stayed in this ramshackle motel with the painted green door and the second floor balcony. It was a whole different era back then. And now with all the security and all that, well, that's a good thing we have the security. I'd rather think things like this wouldn't happen. But it's amazing that in 50 years, what a long way we've come, but how ordinary and down to earth and just a part of humanity those big folks were back then.
He surrounded himself with people. He was often threatened, but still he didn't have the security of today and was vulnerable, as we saw. And it's unfortunate. We had many assassinations. You mentioned Malcolm X, Bobby Kennedy, JFK, Martin Luther, all in that period of time, which I'm very similar in age as you are. It really had an impact on our lives, and something that I hope the youth of today will reflect on and remember and understand.
Conspiracy theories are for a different day and a different show, but I don't believe in every conspiracy theory, because if you want, you can believe in everything as a conspiracy theory. But I'll tell you, the JFK and the Martin Luther King, they are so similar, as you mentioned, in the same era, the same period of time, the same upper echelon were linked in the same thing. I think there was something awry back then, and that's just my opinion.
People are afraid of change. Power structures as they are want to remain, and there may have been some of that there, Rusty.
And when you when you lock the results away until 2060, then I know there's the rub. There may be a problem and something may be rotten in Denmark or in Memphis, is the case.
Exactly,
for that.
I agree.
Kathy, tell us about the weekend coming up.
Well, the weekend starts on Saturday, and Martin Luther King Monday, that we celebrate as a national holiday this year, is on January the 18th. We have a Martin Luther King weekend that starts with a youth event at Scranton High School, and we call that our multicultural event. Very important, and Martin Luther King, he embraced people. So as a result of that, two things happen at Scranton High School on Saturday, January the 14th, and that starts at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The first thing we have is an Everyday Heroes essay contest. Currently, students within the Scranton School District are writing essays about people in their lives that make a difference. And the essays may be about a coach, it may be about a parent, it may be about someone that just impacted their lives, and as these high school students reflect, want to share. And I will tell you, it's emotional because many times, of course, the person that they're honoring is there, and they talk about what they've did for this child. And also part of the essay contest, we have almost a talent show. And so we have different cultures. We'll have a gospel choir. We had the Bhutanese community come and dance. So it's a essay contest, it's a talent show, and when you gather people together, you must have food. So we'll have, we call it appetizers. It's a meal. But every culture has an opportunity to share. And for instance, I attend Shiloh Baptist Church in Scranton, and we'll be bringing sweet potatoes and collard greens so far as the African American heritage is concerned. We have some German food, some Bhutanese food, some Indian food, and you really get a chance. And we'll set it up on islands so that you can partake of that culture so far as food is concerned. We follow that up on Saturday with our signature event at the University of Scranton. And at that signature event, we have 2 guest speakers, one local speaker, which is the President Judge Michael Barrace, the Lackawanna County Court of Common Pleas. And we wanted Judge Barrace there. I will tell you, as African Americans, as people, we can't hide from the news of the courts, criminalization, the war on drugs, mass incarceration. There are a lot of things happening so far as the law and the courts are concerned, and we invited President Judge Michael Barrace to speak. He has been extremely effective in bringing treatment courts to Lackawanna County, and want to hear from Judge Barrace. And then we're following that up with a speaker from the city of Baltimore. And so when you think of the police force in Baltimore, recently they've had uprisings, they've had riots, and we have a police chief, Melvin Russell. He currently, and I want to get it right, he currently oversees, he's been with the Baltimore Police 38 years, and he currently is the chief of community collaboration. And he's also a Baptist minister who's going to come and in the morning speak with police chiefs from our local area and then speak to us at our dinner at the University of Scranton at 2:30 on Saturday, January the 15th. We follow that up with many activities on Monday, and you can interject. Do you have a question? Rusty, you're thinking, okay?
No, I'm wondering
Go ahead,
how far in advance would you have to get someone, and how would you come up with the person, with the chief from Baltimore? That's just not a random draw, but that wasn't a really important question, so that could have waited, Kathy.
That's okay, just because I could go on through the whole weekend quickly. We have, as a group, talked about the courts. And I will tell you, I'm studying for my master's right now in social work at Marywood, and we talk about mass incarceration. And the Martin Luther King Commission was approached by a local foundation. And the question we were asked was, could Scranton ever be the next Ferguson, Missouri?
Good point.
And
that local tie-in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when asked that question, I thought, I sure hope not. But what can we do to prevent that? What can we do to have a conversation about that? So as a result of that, we started to look at the courts and to look at what's done nationally. And Chief Melvin Russell, he has a TED Talk that one of our members saw and thought he had something to offer, particularly when talking about community. And it's one thing to have a police force that we trust in, but I will tell you personally, sometimes when I hear the national news on some of the police shootings, on some of the things that are happening in communities outside of here, it puts questions in your mind. And could we ever be the next Ferguson, Missouri? I sure hope not.
I think a lot of people think no, mainly because of the smaller minority population. But it doesn't matter. It only takes one incident, one event to make history, Kathy.
Yes. So as a result of that, we've sought out the courts or law enforcement, the police academy. We really sought that out as an area this year to look at. And so that's why Chief Melvin Russell came to mind. And I am looking forward to hearing him and also looking forward to him sitting down with our local law enforcement just to talk about some of the things that he does in a larger urban setting that could be useful here. year.
That's good. He's only 4.5 hours away in a big city like that. And of course,
Yes.
as you said, recently in the news for not some good reasons, but I mean, perfect tie-in.
Yes. Yes.
And of course, the local tie-in was great. And of course, as you mentioned, the drugs, we mentioned a couple of weeks ago with all the big ties here in Lackawanna County, all the billboards, all the TV ads about the war on heroin and
Yes.
the opioid epidemic in progress right now. So again, you couldn't be any more topical,
Yes.
any more timely than you are right now, Kathy.
Heroin hits home. That is
Absolutely.
locally what we're talking about, and of course that's also a national crisis. And that's also one of the topics that we hope with Judge Barrace to talk about with our treatment courts, because meaningful change is occurring in people's lives as they're giving the opportunity to change through some of our treatment courts within the Court of Common Pleas in Lackawanna County.
Where are the events taking place, the location?
Well, Saturday, as I mentioned, is at Scranton High School. Sunday is at the University of Scranton in the Naples Student Center. And I will try to fill in a little bit here. We do, of course, there's a cost. There's a meal, and it's $25 per ticket.
That's nominal.
Top tables of 8, $200. It's 2:30 to 5:30 on that Sunday, January the 15th. And the best way to contact, we have an email address, and if you don't mind, I can give that now
Sure,
and give that
absolutely.
a few different times.
Sure.
Since we're called the Greater Scranton Martin Luther King Commission, our email address is gsmlkcommission@gmail.com.
Got it.
And if you're interested in tickets, we look at that, and we have our secretary that looks at that email, and we will personally contact you if you give us the contact information.
So it's Greater Scranton, so it's GSMLK Commission
Exactly.
at gmail.com.
At gmail.com.
Okay, excellent. Monday is a big full day, and of course that's the day,
That
the
is-
day of the day. That's the main day. So yes.
That's the national holiday. And the MLK Commission has member organizations that are with us all year long and sit at the table so far as the board is concerned. Friends of the Poor has been a member organization since the MLK Commission formed. Friends of the Poor will have a teach-in for children ages 5 to 12. We have a new venue this year. They're going to be here at the Scranton City Police Headquarters.
Oh,
and it is a
on
free
South
event.
Washington Avenue.
100 South Washington Avenue.
Right.
I think that's pretty neat.
that's
you know what I mean? Because the police station shouldn't be some foreboding place that you're
Well, like the old
afraid
places
of.
are, the old castles with the gargoyles on top, but this is the new modern one-story brick and stainless
is.
steel and glass. It's a much more accommodating, friendlier place,
Correct.
atmosphere.
And
So that's a good point.
If we're going to be talking about police and race and community, then the children, 5 to 12-year-old, need to feel that this is their police force, that this is someone they can look to, trust to, and know. And I was so pleased when Sister Ann found that, Sister Ann Walsh of Friends of the Poor said that's where we're going to have our teach-in this year. Chief Graziano is someone that we work with, and I think that's going to be an excellent event. If you're interested, it is free, but they do feed you also, and so they do need a count, and call Friends of the Poor, and I'll just give that number, 570-348-4428, and that's Sister Ann Walsh of Friends of the Poor. And then we have, I don't know whether you've met Chancellor Marwan Wafa.
No.
Penn State Worthington campus. Chancellor Wafa, the minute he came to the area, he is of Middle Eastern descent, and he is all about diversity. And last year we met with him, and even though the campus is closed on Martin Luther King Day, he had an event last year, and he's having an event this year. And this year he invited Dr. Leah Richard Palmer from the Marywood University to come to speak. We're also having food at that event too, Rusty, and that's going to be held at Penn State Worthington, 11:45 a.m. on Monday, and it will go till 3. And we'll have a speaker, and we'll have lunch. All they're asking you to do is RSVP once again.
So you'll just get a count, you just can't show up. It's
Yes.
nice to
Yes.
have total.
It is.
Absolutely.
It is. Also, another member organization is United Neighborhood Centers. They've been a member organization since our
And
founding.
a guest on this show many times
Yes.
as well, yes.
They're having a food drive. ARC and UNC have joined together, and all day long they're asking you to drop off non-perishable foods at their center on 410 Olive Street. Then at 5 p.m., And this is something that I'm engaging in this year. We have a march. And I don't know whether you're familiar with our marches. Sister Adrienne Barrett used to lead the march. And I attended the march last year. Without Sister Adrienne, we were somewhat disorganized. People were just kind of, unfortunately, Rusty, on their phones, walking down the street, not engaged.
The culture anymore.
Oh,
So
I was
you have
so
to
bummed.
expect this. Me too. You don't pay attention. It's like, you disrespected me. You don't pay attention to the cause, right?
I know, so
Come
we're getting a new banner. We have a banner contest going on, and we're going to have a banner, and we're going to march together, hopefully putting cell phones aside, and I'm looking up some march songs. I don't know whether it's going to be We Shall Overcome, but we're going to sing a few march songs and actually be somewhat unified on our purpose. We do end that march at the courthouse. And usually one of the commissioners, last year it was Commissioner Pat O'Malley, came and spoke with us, and even people in the audience spoke about Martin Luther King and what this day means to them. And that's at 5 o'clock, starting at UNC's Progressive Center at 414 Olive Street. And Sister Ann, once again, it's not a long walk, but you know, we're not used to marching these days. So we march from Progressive Center.
It's not like the 60s in Washington, D.C. anymore.
Well, you march from Olive Street and you go down to the courthouse. You have to come back to your car. So you get a chance to stop at the Cultural Center for some cocoa and cookies.
See, I could crawl that distance. You need cocoa just to make
we
that.
We need cocoa.
Blocks.
It's cold in January. So that's compliments of Friends of the Poor and Sister Ann Walsh. And then in the evening at 7 o'clock, still on North Washington Avenue, we're having our service at Bethel AME Church.
And then all day, of course, that food drive is all day for non-perishable. It's canned items, things like that.
Yes.
We wanted to talk briefly, as you mentioned briefly, on racism in the diverse nation as well.
Yes. One thing we're attempting to do so far as the commission, it's one thing to have a weekend, but how can we affect our community throughout the year? And Dr. Waffa, Chancellor Waffa from Penn State Worthington campus, introduced to our area diversity circles. And when he started talking about diversity circles, it just piqued my interest as, is that an initiative that we could take? And so we are moving forward with diversity circles. And the first curriculum, Rusty, that we took on was Facing Racism in a Diverse Nation. And we've already had 2 diversity circles, one at Penn State Worthington and one at Shiloh Baptist Church. I will tell you, I was able to facilitate one of the diversity circles. Diversity circles are small, 8 to 12 people that sit around a table over 5 weeks, 2 hours each time, and talk about a topic.
And what's the goal? A quorum to get as many as possible on the same page in a deal like this?
It's dialogue, and at the end of the dialogue, community change. Yes, a link to action.
Yep.
Now, we're experimenting with it right now. We hope at our event on January 15th to introduce a community-wide diversity circle. We're in the process of training facilitators currently that can lead the groups. And the facilitators, extremely important because it has to be a neutral person that can listen, that can give some direction, but not insert their opinion or come with an agenda.
Just the facts, ma'am.
Yes, and so we're right now training facilitators so that the key would be to have community-wide, I'm talking about 15 to 20 circles going on across the community over a 4 to 5 week period of time, and then having a convening event where we talk about what can we do for the city of Scranton. It may be something simple. It could be something that we need funding from major organizations. But diversity circles are, I believe, the dialogue, the conversation can lead to change.
I don't know about you, but I think that we've taken a step forward and 3 back in the racism issues. And again, I think that's the growing pains of continuing on with civilization.
Yes.
And I think no one will ever write that, but I think you have to learn to cope with this and try and correct it somehow. Easy to say, but it's not an easy thing to do.
Right.
This is certainly a step in the right direction, bringing people together. It can't be we and them, it's got to be us.
No. And a diversity circle has to be diverse. So consequently, when we had the application, we did ask age, we did ask ethnicity, race, so that we didn't want all African Americans sitting around the
Good
table.
survey cross-section there, yes.
And so as a result of that, you have good conversation. And just one little piece, I grew up in Scranton, as I said, and when they had the redevelopment, I happened to live in Midtown Apartments. Spent a portion of my life in Midtown. And we had a woman there that was so honest. A few of us grew up in Midtown, and one of the men in the group said he enjoyed Midtown, the diversity, he was connected to the community. She said, and honestly so, you know what? As a white woman looking outside, I felt sorry for all of you in Midtown Apartments because of we thought less than. And I will tell you, that was cleansing for her. It was eye-opening for us, but we connected in that group. And there are definitely ideas that we have that may not be right or that may not be correct. But unfortunately, because of sometimes the small community or sphere or silo that we grow up, we think maybe that's what it is, and we learn differently.
See, that's sad. From the time you lived there until now, we've built walls.
We have.
And that's the problem. And it's not easy to tear down some of those walls. That's unfortunate. That comes with time, and we'll see what the future will bring. Again, this is the, to reach you folks is via email, is GS, Greater Scranton, GSMLK, commission at gmail.com.
Exactly.
And then the events run from Saturday, January 14th. The 15th is Sunday, and then, of course, national holiday is Monday. A website to reach you folks at either?
Yes, I think go Greater Scranton MLK Commission. You will go through the University of Scranton website.
Okay, that's a good thing. So it's uofs.org. Yes, for that.
And I must say the University of Scranton has been wonderful in helping us as a small organization have events as our dinner and also hosting our website. So I must thank them for that.
It's been great to see you again, and all the best. Break a leg on Martin Luther King Day 2017. Good to see you again,
it's been
Kathy,
my pleasure.
and a Happy New Year. It's been my pleasure
Same
as
to
well.
you.
David DeCosmo gets soon. We'll see you back here soon. Mark McGlory, thanks for all your technical guru-ness here on the program. To all of you out there, a Happy New Year. All the best in 2017. I'm Rusty Fender for ECTV Live.